Yo, guys, it's Kyle coming at you from Bane's Film Reviews. Today, I'm sitting down with Malin Barr. She is a writer, director, producer, and star of Evergreen, which showcased at Film Audit just a few weeks ago. It's this scary, daunting, incredible short film that I'm really happy that I had the chance to see. I said it in my review. It's probably the best thing at Film Audit. You should be incredibly proud. And Malin, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and I'm so happy that you liked it. It makes me really happy.
It was again, it was fantastic. There's some interesting films at Film Audit. It was not a festival that I was familiar with. I was fortunate enough that someone reached out and gave me access to everything. And I
Right.
just it just so happens that I watched Evergreen, and I just thought it was fantastic. Um,
Well, thank you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then
Philmont is
so
great. It was my first year as well. I did not know about it either, but it's a wonderful festival. It's really cool.
it is. There's some really unique experimental things. And I that was sort of the tone throughout the entire festival. Yours,
Experimental, yes, absolutely.
yes, yeah, yours is a kind of a step above. So,
Okay, I'll take
it,
it.
um, but so before we actually get into the film, I am curious how you got into filmmaking in the first place.
That's a kind of a long answer. I'm gonna keep it short, but
Okay,
basically, well, I'm from Sweden, from Stockholm. I started out as a dancer first, and then
okay,
started, I lived in London. I went to school there. I always loved film a lot, but I actually didn't have parents who, we watched Austin Powers and Monty Python. That was kind of the film that I grew up with. But it was good. And then gradually, as I moved to New York, I started doing more, even plays and musical theater, and then went into film more, and then I started acting in film more, and then I started getting frustrated with parts that I would get. So I started writing because I wanted to, at that point I wanted to write a comedy because I love
okay.
comedy. And yeah, so that was what started getting me into writing films. The first short I wrote, Hedda Needs Help, is a very crazy, comedy of errors about a
Okay.
poet, a girl who wants to be a poet and tries to do everything wrong to get that job. But either way, that got me into writing, and I'm so happy for that. And then since then, I kind of just continue to write short format, and Evergreen was obviously a very different genre than comedy. But
Yeah.
I don't think you have to pick a genre. I'm realizing, because I'm working on a bunch of different things now, both feature, TV series, and they're all different genres
Mm.
entirely.
Very, very cool. Yeah, yeah. I don't think you have to stick to one thing. Why not expand and try everything out?
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. And then so Evergreen, where did that idea come from?
Evergreen was inspired by, I mean, again, I was myself an immigrant in the US and going through different processes of artist visas,
Mhm.
green cards, and a lot of my friends were European or just not American, and everyone was sort of dealing with the same type of stress that turned into like a semi paranoia of like, what are they going to ask me? What is going
Mhm.
to happen? Am I going to get it? Or like, if I leave the country, can I not get in again? And like all of this fear and stress, because the process is so scrutinizing, and it
Mhm.
doesn't really feel safe. Like, it doesn't make you feel like you're welcome to stay, and I've proved that you're
Yeah.
outstanding enough to. There's so many things, and I talked to so many of my friends, and everyone kind of had this collective fear or whatnot. So that started the thought of it, of making it into something that was more portraying the feeling of
Yeah.
stress, or the feeling of paranoia. And a lot of the dialogue actually in the film is inspired by real questions, or a lot of it is actually real. Like, this is part of my experience, other people's experience, and then I started googling all these different stories of green card interviews, and there was like so
Mm.
much crazy stuff. Um so but all of that, saying that, yeah, it was mostly the feeling of paranoia that, like, that process cost me and a lot of my friends, that I wanted to try to
Wow.
express in a way
Yeah.
that I
Um,
hadn't seen before.
Yeah, and then I mean, obviously, like you mentioned a couple times, immigration is a huge part of this. It's at the core of Evergreen. It's very much about immigration, and immigration has been, a hot topic for some time, and it
Mm,
often is very divisive. And I feel
yeah.
like you either end up on one side of it or the other. And you do a really good job of not dividing audiences here. I feel like you allow them to kind of form their own opinions and see the facts and the truth rather than forcing something on them, which I hate seeing in films. I hate when an opinion is forced on the audience. I would rather us be able to form our own. So I am curious
Hmm.
how you're able to first how you approach it, and then how you're able to succeed in not dividing audiences and creating a narrative that is cohesive and still you're able to attract a lot of different people.
Wow, that's a great question. Um, well, I think I might have some leeway in the fact that it's like experimental, right? So like you're brought in
Mm,
with this couple. I wanted to make sure that you like the couple right from the start. So you don't,
yeah,
you're with them. Um, you can see that they're going through something and you want to root for them, but then also um, this other world kind of represents her dreams clearly, or like whatever she's going through. Uh, but in a way where we I wanted to make sure that we knew that we were in an immigration office. We knew like
yeah,
sort of what the theme is, but we're not like placing it. It's not like I could have made the whole film in the immigration office, but it would have been like a little bit on the nose. And I also like that experimental uh, tone and using that to
mm,
portray the feeling of it. So I think I don't know. Basically, so what I did was I shot a lot of it. The first period of time that we shot everything out in the location that's in the woods.
okay,
And then I cut it and I was like, nope, something is missing. I need like that reality, like that groundedness in reality. So we went back and we shot the stuff in the office. And then there was more stuff, but but then I actually mixed it between the two. So the two worlds I felt like used I was able to get the contrast between the two
mm,
worlds. And that I think gives you the option to take with you whatever you want. You can see that you're in the immigration office. You can understand
yeah,
what it's about, but then you're not staying there. So you're like you follow the character and her emotions more when you get out into the weird dream space, and then you come back into it. So I think maybe that gives the audience a little bit more freedom to try to like understand what is happening and give them the chance to form their own understanding. I think that was my
well,
hope.
well, it works. It worked for me, at least. I would imagine it works for others as well. So, you had mentioned the woods and the setting, and so I was curious with the decision to shoot in the woods. So, kind of a combination of daunting because you kind of feel isolated from the rest of the world, but also it's very attractive. It's very nice looking place. So you get this really nice juxtaposition um, just with the setting itself. So, what goes into making that decision, and why did you ultimately come to the conclusion that that was the best place to shoot?
Well, there was a practical thing where my friend actually owns that station, and so I've always
Okay.
loved it because I think it is kind of like eerie, and the woods are just eerie and mystical, and it's yeah. I wanted to shoot, and so there's that, but then I also felt like it was serving the story in terms of again like trying to create a space like for color reference. I think we had Midsummer at the end for using like working in color correction, but
Hmm.
creating that space that feels like a dream, but it's not a dream. It's the eerie, like the green, like you say, isolation. The
Yeah.
trees makes everything a little bit disorienting. Um, and then in a way where like you can't really place where they are. I mean, you do see the house in the beginning, but
Yeah.
when they're out by that dinner table, it's just like so. I think that location is just like it's a table in the middle of the woods, and you're like, where are they?
Yeah.
And that serves the purpose of like it not necessarily being a real world or a real place. It's somewhere where the people, I don't know if you noticed, but the people that you see in the hallway in the beginning of the
Yeah.
office, yeah, you didn't notice. Some
Yeah.
people didn't notice the woman that walks past her. That is
I,
done
I
Jessica.
I had recognized I guess it's is it Andrew's character
Yeah,
that you
Andrew's
meet in the
character is in
beginning.
there. Hmm.
Um, I recognized him as soon as I saw him at the house, and I knew that she had to be there somewhere. I went back and watched again because I
Yeah,
realized that there was
right.
some connection to the opening scene. Yeah,
Yeah. So there was kind of that thing of like taking fragments from the real world and then placing it in a world that didn't feel real and to the
yeah,
audience feels like a little haunting. And then there's a lot of details in the dream location or whatever you want to call it, where there's a lot of details that remind you of like immigration or there's a big American flag and there's when they arrive and there's American like their clothes are actually like red, blue, and
yeah,
white. And then yeah, so there's all of those things that I kind of played with. I feel like it was adding to the disorienting, isolated and dream space. And it's such a good contrast with like the boring gray office where
yeah,
everything's very square and yeah, so that was my thought.
yeah. That was a really good idea with the picnic table with the dinner table because I didn't realize that until now, but it does because it's so isolated and kept separate from everything else. It does kind of simulate these dream worlds that you see in other films where it just sits in this sort of like on this blank canvas with nothing else there.
Yeah, like
And
how
it,
did that table get there?
exactly,
Because we
exactly.
never see them walking there.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, and then so obviously you're the lead in the film that you wrote and directed. So why do you choose yourself? What's the process like of choosing yourself? And then what sort of challenges do you face? And now you are critiquing yourself constantly throughout, not just as an actor, but as sort of your own boss.
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, for this movie, I actually last time I wrote and I acted in it, but I didn't direct it. And then this movie, I was just supposed to direct it actually. I had a wonderful couple that is a European director and cinematographer that is and they were going to do it with me. So uh, and then it actually because of the subject of the film, because she was going through her visa process, she decided to not do it.
Okay.
So, which is kind of funny in a way. It's funny because it like is exactly that fear that I'm playing on in the film. It's like, well,
Yeah.
maybe I do a film about immigration. Maybe I'll get kicked out of the country because that's all, people walk around and believe. Maybe someone sees it. I even thought that when I was making this, it was like, what if someone watches it and they're like, you know, this is criticizing of America. She cannot
Yeah.
stay. um, but yeah, so basically for me, for this one, it was like a very last minute shift of, I think maybe 2 weeks before that
Oh
I
wow.
decided, okay, I'll direct it because I really want to. And then there was literally more or less all of the shoot days that we had, which was just two. I wish that I was not acting in it because it was so fun to direct. And I was like,
Yeah.
um, so for next time, I don't think I will do it. I think the next project I have coming that I'll direct, I won't act in it too.
Okay.
As a writer, it is fun because you know the characters so well. Like,
Yeah.
there's definitely things in Mia that is based on my own feelings or I think you do that always somewhat as a writer, you put something of yourself in it. So
Hmm.
for that reason, it was to connect with a role. And when I was directing as well, it wasn't as much of a challenge as I would have thought of because like I didn't really
Okay.
have to think. I was so stressed anyway that I was like, okay, I'm doing everything. Now I'm gonna direct everyone else, and then I jump in, and then I was stressed, and that kind of served the character. And I knew what she had to do. I knew what mind space she was in and what she was going through because I have
Hmm.
somewhat experienced it myself. So it wasn't too hard, but it definitely is a thing. Like you're juggling
Yeah.
everything.
I
Um,
imagine it's incredibly difficult.
yeah, and but so it was a great experience. I had a wonderful team. I had people helping me, assisting Cameron, and my cinematographer was amazing.
Hmm.
He helped me a lot to set up the shots and figure out how we wanted to tell it. Um, so having a great team is always helpful.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
eh, good.
And then what was the other produced? No, what was the second part of the question? I feel like
Well, it
I'm not
was
sure if I got to
you
that part.
you basically you kind of covered it all. It was what was it like? What are the challenges of now critiquing yourself not just as an actor but as kind of
Yeah,
your own boss? Yeah.
I think
Um.
I won't produce or like no, I'm not going to say not because it is fun and it works sometimes, but it's like it is to like not wear all the hats at the same time, especially like producer plus director because it's so different parts of your brain. Like one is like this is what we have to get done, and the other one is like, but I want to be creative. I want to try this and that. So it's hard to wear both of those, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And then sticking with the cast. So this might be a weird thing to say, but it's a particularly good-looking cast.
Yeah, what
Um.
can I
And,
say? All my friends. I'm just joking.
and I mean, I would just typically chalk that up to coincidence, but it kind of plays a role in the film as
It
well.
does, yeah.
I mean, you see these attractive people, and I feel like subconsciously you feel like you need to trust them, but you don't know who to trust. You don't know who is trustworthy. You don't know who's telling the truth. And so, was there some intent in casting this way? When you realized you had a cast that looked a certain way, did you doctor up
Mm.
the script at all? I'm curious what that process was like.
Yeah, it definitely shifted also a little bit up until the end, but I was really happy, especially with I mean with everyone, but also making um this couple Rana and Andrew
Mm,
the couple or you know them being beautiful and trustworthy, but then intimidating at the same time. I was kind of
yeah,
playing with the idea of like what is the American dream? Like Andrew looks like Superman, you know, I think.
yeah,
So I'm like, yeah, he looks like the typical intimidating but like big handsome tall man, and I wanted to use that idea of you know I don't know America in a way. um
yeah,
but then with Rana clearly like always I wanted to make sure that it was diverse. Rana still has that very intimidating like beautiful but very hard, like she's very intimidating too, I think. So there was
yeah,
that thing of definitely. I think you wrote some comment about it being like Stepford Wives almost, and yeah, and I think
yeah,
that was something that I wanted to work with. And then for me, I don't know, I feel like I just looked disheveled at that point, but and Zach is also a friend of a friend, and just a really great actor. So
oh yeah,
um but I think I think yeah, I think there was definitely a thought in especially making sure that the couple like Jessica and Robert being like very intimidating but welcoming, and like using that like air in between those two. We're like, are you nice? Do you want what's best for me, or are you not? Getting that sense from them
yeah. I mean,
was
you almost just want to trust everyone on screen because of the way they look.
yeah.
Um, but also because they're so good looking, it's intimidating. Like you said, it's it's sometimes hard to get close to someone that looks a certain way because you feel inferior in a way.
Oh,
Um,
okay, yeah, that's
yeah.
interesting.
And so, by the way, Andrew looks like he's about 10 feet tall in the film.
He's really tall.
He looks like
He's tall.
the tallest person I've ever seen.
Yeah, he should
Um,
play Tarzan or something. Like,
yeah,
yeah, he's tall. He's
absolutely. Yeah,
Dutch, part Dutch.
yeah. He should be cast as like a Tarzan or a Superman or something like that for sure.
Absolutely, agreed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and then so I think you kind of touched on this a little bit when you mentioned wanting potentially filming everything in the office. Was there ever a time, because it seems like you could have drawn this out much further? I feel like it's very open and closed. I feel like it's a complete story for sure, but I feel
Mm.
like you could have for sure added a lot to this. Was there ever a point where you said maybe this is a feature length film, or maybe this is just a short film, longer than I think it was what 7 minutes? Um,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've considered writing into a feature,
mm,
but the process a lot. And I think, maybe one day, some people have asked me about it, so maybe one day it'd be an interesting feature. I think you could definitely work as like I think there's enough material to like, start it earlier with them, the couple, like what they're going through. You could definitely make
yeah,
it into more of a horror feature, or thriller feature. For the story, again, when we shot it the first time, where it was just in the woods, it did have a different ending, and it went a little
Mm.
further, and it was a little bit more, it was a little bit more experimental,
Okay.
and it basically got to a point on the end where she's like, she falls into the water and she comes out of the water, and there's this weird moment where they come down to the beach and they're standing there and they're like giving her her green card basically, and everything. It's just like, what
Okay.
the fuck is happening? But in like still in this dream world space.
Okay.
And then so it had a little bit more of like a definite end, where the character then looked into camera and was like, with a face of like, is this worth it? Like,
Yeah.
was it worth it to go through this process? But and so it was maybe a little bit even more criticizing. So would have taken, like you talked about it, that would have been more of like, this is my statement, this is what I think.
Yeah.
But what happened with that cut was that a lot of people that watched it who were non-Americans understood and had been
Mhm.
going through the process, was like, oh, I really get it, like this is what it felt like. But a
Yeah.
lot of other people that had not known about, because a lot of people don't know, and this is the thing that I wanted to touch on with this film, is like, your everyday immigration process or whatnot. Like, I understand that this is a different perspective than, certain people have go through a way worse situation of immigration. So um, this is just a different perspective. It's like an everyday stress and paranoia of like anyone that would apply for a green card or
Yeah.
an artist visa. And so I wanted to make sure that and again, that like emotion that I was trying to portray, or like this feeling, uh, would be relatable to more than the European audience, because then
Yeah.
so that's when I shot the stuff in the office, and that was what made the story a little bit more relatable and a little bit more grounded in the real world.
Yeah.
So the story has shifted, and I like keeping it open ended. There was even that moment on the end, I don't know if you noticed, but the painting is moving a little bit, and you're like, wait, are we in the real world, or is this still the
Oh,
interview?
okay. I
So I
actually I
wanted,
actually missed that.
yeah, you'll have to watch it again.
I will have to
But
watch it
yeah,
again.
but again, it was like, it was short. It got shorter. It was 12 minutes first, and then got 7.
Yeah.
But I kind of, yeah, I don't know. It's very effective. I think also we could have used like another shoot day, I think,
Yeah.
especially for the first location, like getting more inserts and things like that. It was a very quick shoot. So I think if we had had more time, I might have worked more on the suspense and like drawing things out.
Sure.
Because it is fast paced. It's like,
Oh yeah.
it's done.
Yeah. It's incredibly quick, but you do a good job of developing these characters very quickly so that viewers can relate to them. Um, yeah, I think it's done very, very well. I think that's got to be one of the most difficult things, to be able to relate to characters so quickly, because you
Yeah.
often see these character arcs that take place over an hour and a half, 2 hours, or even longer now. And I mean, to have 7 minutes to develop, I mean, you're really focused on one, but you're developing 4 characters in such a short amount of time. And it's done incredibly well. So kudos to
Thank
you.
you.
Of
Yeah, thanks a
course, of
lot.
course.
That's very,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate that. I love
yeah.
character-driven things.
Oh yeah.
It's the
Um,
actor in me that loves the characters and the behaviors and whatnot. I don't know.
yeah, of course. Why not?
Yeah.
It it's yeah. I don't know how to put it into words, but it's to find a character that you can connect to. And like you said, you wanted to not only appeal to one group of people. I mean, I was born and raised here, and I was able to relate
Yeah.
to it as well. So I mean, that's not something I'd
That's
ever
great. That was
experienced.
my
Yeah,
goal.
yeah. So
I'm so glad.
to be able to accomplish that is a big deal. So
Well, thank
yeah,
you. Thank
of
you so
course, of
much.
course. And then, like I mentioned, it was at Film Audit. But that's over. That ended a couple of weeks ago, and I'm curious where you're headed next, where people can find your film.
Yeah. So we premiered at Brooklyn Horror in New York in
Okay.
October, and then we have been at a couple of different festivals in Europe. Um, a lot of horror festivals, which, to me, it was first, I was like, oh, right, is it horror? Yeah, it is kind of horror.
Yeah.
I always thought of it more like experimental, but I'm actually starting to love the horror genre. So we did a couple of Italian festivals and a couple more in LA, and I'm doing Holly Shorts monthly in
Oh,
2
cool.
weeks, and then a couple more in Europe,
Okay.
seemingly, and then I think I think that might be it because I mean, it was a weird time because it was right after COVID and I didn't
Mm,
put it into festivals in 21 because it felt like everything was still kind of not going. So it's been kind of this, I guess we're like mid, mid festival run. So there'll probably be another, trickling in and then
cool.
hopefully trying to get this distribution somewhere for short. Even that's difficult for a short film, but I think we had
Yeah.
some interest already. So that's great.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And then you mentioned at the beginning that you're working on a couple different things right now. Can you go into a little more detail about those things?
Sure. Well, I'm writing another short that hopefully I'll shoot this year. It's very different, again, different genre and different world. It's a dance drama. So it's a short about again, I grew up as a dancer, so there's a lot of dance
Mm,
coming back into my writing, but it's about this young girl that goes to an audition in a Swedish girl that goes to an audition in London. And it's very visually performative piece. It's going to be a lot of interactive with movement and stuff. So
mhm.
that one I'm working on, hopefully shooting this year. And then I'm working on a feature length dance drama also that takes place in the same world, but it is not the same character.
Okay.
It's also it will probably go a little closer to dance drama slash a little like almost body horror potentially.
Hmm.
And that one I just finished the draft for, so that's
Nice.
happening. And then I just finished a screenwriting program in Sweden last year, so I'm now starting to work on two features and one TV series this next week. So I'm
Oh,
busy
yeah.
for working for a production company there. So those are Swedish projects, a drama series, a young adult film, and then another horror.
Okay. Yeah, you are
Yeah,
incredibly busy. I don't know how you balance all that, but
yeah, it's
good for
just
you.
getting started. I literally feel like, yeah, it's going to be an exciting year.
Yeah.
Um, and a TV show that I also wrote last year is getting potentially a comedy. So again, like what I'm very excited. I'm very thankful for having so many things, and we'll see what happens with all of it. This industry, but it's definitely going to be a busy year, and I'm excited to work in all types of genres. And I'm so excited to have been like introduced to horror, kind of first through a lot of acting.
Yeah.
Last couple of features I've done acted in, it's been horror, so it's a new exciting world for me, which I'm loving more and more.
Awesome. Well, good luck with the 150 things that you're working on.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll be in touch hopefully, and hopefully I have the opportunity to watch and review those as well. And
Yes.
then yeah, and then just one more question for you. What are some of your favorite films?
Oh, it's so funny. I just talked to a friend about this yesterday, and we are like,
Yeah.
can't ask that. People can't ask that because it's so hard to say one. Again, with the genre thing. I mean, I told her my favorite film is Shoplifters because it is kind of. I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen
No, I have
Shoplifters?
not. No.
It's an incredible Korean film that came out in 2018. And I love it. It's a family drama. It's wonderful, sort of in the same realm as Parasite in a way.
Okay.
Um, but then that's like one of them.
Yeah.
I have so many favorite films, and I don't have a favorite director. I I love Wes Anderson's style and some of
Hmm.
his films. A lot of his films I love. Um, I like the old like Agnes Varda. Some of her films are amazing. Old
Hmm.
French films. Le Bonheur is like a really amazing film, and then I I love like for horrors. I think my favorite is Get Out, which was also kind of
Oh yeah.
which wasn't really an inspiration for Evergreen, but people kept saying, "Oh, it reminds me of that," and I was like, "Okay, thank you."
Yeah.
So depending on what, and then I think Bridesmaid might be one of the best comedies I've ever seen. So like it
Okay.
depends what genre you ask me about. I
Oh
really
yeah.
don't have one, but that's a few of them.
Yeah. Well, that's why I love the question because you can't name just one. It's impossible.
It's
So
literally impossible. And if
yeah.
you ask me tomorrow, I'll be like, and this one, and that.
Yeah.
There's so much
But
good films.
yeah, yeah. The list is always changing for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
and I just saw the Banshees of Inisherin. It was really good.
oh my God,
Very depressing, but
that's one of
amazing.
the best things I've seen from last year. That
So
it
good.
it, it might between that or The Menu, I think those are the two my two
I haven't seen
favorites
that
from
one
last
yet,
year.
but
Oh, it's so good.
but
Um,
yeah, I hope it does well at the Oscars because it was really funny and odd and disturbing and like sad and everything. I just felt so much weird. Like I felt
yes,
so much different things. It's
yes,
just
absolutely.
what you want a movie to do.
Yes, it's like a comedy, drama, mystery, sort of like
Yeah.
psychological horror film.
Again, not a real like you can't say what genre it is, which is so
Right.
good.
Yes. But again, Malin, thank you so much for sitting down with me. We've been trying for a couple of weeks now, and we finally got it.
I know,
It
yeah. I'm so
finally
excited.
happened. Yeah, and again, Evergreen was fantastic. I'm really happy that I had the opportunity to watch. I'm glad that I sort of stumbled across it because I had a list of things to
Yeah.
choose from, and I just happened to choose this one because I had a little bit of time. Um, and best of luck moving forward with the film and with the other things that you're working on.
Thank you so much. And thanks for taking your time. I really, yeah, it's really fun to talk about it. I'm so
Of
glad that you
course,
really, it really resonated with you. So that's
it really
really
did.
cool.
Yeah. But again, thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.